It's recording. And maybe just check the audio. Is the audio good on the owl up there?
Okay.
Yes, looks like
Sue, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Quinn.
Super echoey.
Super echoey. Okay. Is it any better now?
Yeah, as long as like only one person is talking at a time and there's not a lot of movement, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's the acoustics of the room.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Okay. I will call the meeting to order at 6:32. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion to amend our agenda, specifically adding to item number 7, a letter, an op-ed on healthcare that I would like the board to approve signing on to with Connie Green and Nicole.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I can second. Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Jenna. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, hold on, can I just ask, what exactly is the vote?
We're amending the agenda to include adding
What
this
is
letter.
Taconic and Green, what all have to do with it?
Because it's a letter, the letter
I'm halfway through it.
right, so that is being signed on by all of the boards of the VRC, and we're being asked to sign on to it as well.
So at this point, you're just asking to put it on the agenda?
Correct.
Oh, okay, so you're just.
So we're asking to amend the agenda to include approval of.
Putting it on the agenda to discuss.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Any abstentions? Any nays? Motion carries. Okay. The agenda has been amended. Okay, we have 10 minutes for public comment. Is there any public comment? Lisa?
Okay. Lisa Hoyt, Paula resident, parent, music teacher. I just wanted to, I know that, the music is still on the agenda. I just have a couple of these, I just wanted to give you some information about the music program. And if you do follow through with the potential proposed cut, what could be at stake? The music teacher teaches 8 grade levels right now, pre-K through 6th grade, 4 hours of band lessons, performing ensembles, all school meeting, daily kindergarten and block and 2 recess duties. I'm the only teacher currently as a music teacher who teaches multi-age groups and puts on 2 full-scale performances that involve the entire school. And this fits right into our CIP for social emotional learning, how students establish and maintain positive relationships and have meaning and belonging in our school. Mettawee expects music performances for the Halloween parade, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving feast, Memorial Day, 6th grade graduation. The music teacher is also expected to do all of the professional development days, parent night, open house, teacher training, staff meetings, and report cards. Unique to the music room, we have at least 50% of our students who are in band using school-owned instruments that the music teacher is required to inventory, maintain, and clean every year. We also have 100% 4th and 5th graders in band right now, which is pretty cool. Out of 12 Mettawee 6th graders, 6 of them in chorus tried out for Green Mountain Music Districts, 3 of them were accepted. As a BRSU music teacher, it is my responsibility to personally pay for membership in the state and in the National Music Educator Association so that we can participate at all in that. And 3 of our students are attending a festival in February. The music teacher is required to do all of the legwork to get those students in, to chaperone them for auditions and for the performance. And just some facts about music and art at the bottom and then on the back. The VRSU does not provide direct curriculum support for music and art. We create our own curriculums each year, and because of performance and art shows and things like that, we're required to constantly be changing our material every year. We can't just walk in and say, now we're going to turn to page 12, now we're going to turn to chapter 6. Music and art require unique preparation and setup, especially when you teach 7 different grade levels. You walk into a kindergarten room, you've got little seats and little tables, and you've got big desks and big chairs and music stands and paint and lots of art supplies. Planning is really important, planning time for those setup and takedowns. Not all our teaching blocks are the same length of time. The one at the end of the day is shorter than all the rest. And classes in the afternoon get less time than classes in the morning already. As it is, my Friday classes will only receive music 2 times in the entire month of February. Just shortens times, takes away lesson time. It makes it so that you can't move classes to other places in our school day. I just thought they were important things for everybody to have as information. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Anyone online? I just don't know what that.
I don't see any.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh no. Oh no. We're back. Okay. Seeing none? I would entertain a motion on, or actually, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Would a board member care to review our operating norms? I can do that. Thank you, Jenna.
Oh, they're missing.
They're missing?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to skip them this time? I'm comfortable with that. Okay. We will skip the norms. I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda. Thank you, Corey. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jenna. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Next up, we have an action item of approving the fiscal year 27 budget.
Yeah, so Sue is joining us online. Okay, thanks. Do you want to go over the information? I think, I guess I'll let you go over it, but just start by noting that on the packet, page 5, that the budget that the board is looking at tonight does not include the 0.2 R and 0.2 music reductions that were presented at the last meeting. So it does say that, but it's, I just want to make sure the board's clear about that. And I'm sure that Susan will go about that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So that is what Randy just said is correct. The budget that's presented includes the final budget puts the 0.2 of art and music back in the presentation. So they are included. The 0.4 of the librarian position is not. So that is still not in the budget. But as noted on packet page 4, that position, the other 0.4 of that position that is taken out of the Mettawee budget is now in the T&G budget. So the position itself stays as a 1.0 position in the BRSU, but Mettawee is only covering 0.6 of that position. Okay, that clear? Okay. So obviously we've tweaked the remainder of the budget. We've finalized our operations budget. We've put in the final BRSU assessments based on where we feel ADM is going to land. You're seeing BRSU assessments, even though the budgets in the BRSU are going up, you are seeing your assessments go down, and that is because of your declining enrollment. So in other words, even though we're seeing declining enrollment sort of everywhere, Mettawee's is you have a smaller share of the BRSU overall pie. So everybody's going down, but you're going down a little bit more. So your share is less of that assessment. Even with really not seeing a change in our voted budget, right, from year to year, a couple $1,000s, that's not a lot of money. So you're seeing a 0% increase in the voted budget. That's mainly because of secondary, right? We know secondary enrollment is down and that impacts your budget. So that's offsetting increases that are in other areas. We also have some increases in revenues. So that's helping lower our education spending. And one of those areas is in using a little more surplus than we have in the past. That's also shown to you on packet page 5. So even with all of that good news, we are still seeing increases in the tax rates. And we know that that is because the CLA continues to go down. So even though you're seeing a drop in your district tax rate, you're still going to see a small increase at the town level. And right now we're estimating that to be around 3 cents. We did get final CLAs just before we printed this budget. So this is where we expect the tax rate to land if the property yield remains as presented, which we know they do usually change that a little bit in the spring, but usually it's to our favor. Let's see. So the only other thing to talk about really that I want you to consider is the fact that we are anticipating a surplus at the end of this year. We talked about this at the last meeting, and right now we're not recommending we do anything with that surplus. We have a couple things going on. One, obviously, is our uncertainty of federal funding next year. We budgeted for federal positions to support the Mettawee school, and if we were to receive significant cuts in federal funds, this anticipated surplus, if it comes to fruition, would help offset those costs and keep those positions in place, not forcing us to deficit spend. The other thing is that if you go to packet page, let's see, this is the not so great news. Go to packet page 18.
Sue, can
And-
I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
I wanna restate what you just said, because I think that that's important, given prior discussions we've had and concerns that we've raised. So our recommendation is to not do anything with the surplus and to keep it in case we don't receive federal funds to pay for positions in the budget. So that is our recommendation. And I want you as a board to know, why we're making it, and if you choose to approve the budget, you're understanding that that's, the connection versus identifying a place to put the surplus funds, an account, or, a fund to put it in, with running the risk of deficit spending. Because once you approve the budget and once we let people know that they're not being reduced, they're here. We're not able to cut positions. So I just want to be clear with you that you understand that. I fundamentally think it's the right decision, but I think it's board members' support, we know that's what we're deciding to approve this. Scott, you have a question?
Yeah, I thought I recall in the last meeting that this item was discussed and we all agreed that's what we should do. Do I recall that correctly?
We did, it did get brought up at the last meeting, and we didn't,
I think we all-
I think we didn't have like a final official.
But I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I just wanted
I
to
think to have that
make sure that we're clear.
back pocket, I think that's fine.
So I just, a clarifying question on that. If we put that to tax stabilization, we can deficit spend and recover from tax stabilization?
You could. So that's sort of the circle of tax stabilization, right? Because it's there for you to stabilize your taxes. So if you were to find yourself in a place where you deficit spending next year, we would want to raise that deficit in FY28, and we can do that by transferring money from the tax stabilization fund. So yes, that can all happen, but it also doesn't have to, given that you aren't required to do anything with an anticipated surplus that exists this year. We don't know for sure that surplus actually will take place. We hope it will. I anticipate it today, but this is 6 months away. So it's our best guess as of right now for what we know. So we don't know for sure that surplus is even going to exist, and you don't have to do anything with it. And so that's why we're recommending just leaving it alone for now. And so as Randy said, that is what's in the presentation for now. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Julie. audio is totally cutting out. Okay. So I was taking you over to packet page 18. And another sort of reason to not spend down that anticipated surplus this year. In other words, not apply it to FY27 to further reduce the tax rate. Because with declining enrollment, we would expect our long-term weighted count to continue to go down. It didn't go down a lot this year. We talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, and the reason why it didn't go down a lot this year is two reasons. One, our federal poverty percentage went up a little bit, so there's that. And then Mettawee School, they dropped below 100 for enrollment. And if you look at the bottom, those last two lines on packet page 18, you see the school enrollment, less than 100, school enrollment between 100 and 250. You get a larger weight for a smaller school. And you are now considered a smaller school, so you're getting a larger weight for those kids that go to Mettawee to help cover the fact that it does cost more to run a small school. So that gave us an offset for this year, but now that exists, and with declining enrollment, if it were to continue, we're projecting modeling out a LTW of 464, down from 500. I hope it doesn't go that low, but based on the information I have right now today and doing a projection, that's what we've come up with. So that says that we might need to use some surplus to reduce taxes in future years. Okay.
So I just did some quick math. I don't know. Okay. The budget that's presented tonight, if we had that exact same budget next year, and we had the projected long-term weighted ADM from packet page 18, we would be looking at a 12-cent increase to the district tax rate. So
yeah, that looks right.
So I just,
yeah,
this is stuff for us to consider.
Correct.
When we think about where we are now and where we're going to be next year.
I had a question about the grant funded, the federal grant. How much of that is it delineated on in here, or is it is it?
Yeah, what package grant funds on in this
So
budget?
on packet page 5, under the use of anticipated surplus, I've got that second bullet, and we budgeted 153,000 of spending on behalf of Mettawee out of the federal grants.
Do you need us to vote, or if we approve the budget, this surplus is already in budget, so or it's just not really anything that we have to specifically.
Right.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we?
Nope.
Jumping in. Yeah, so I had a question with the, on packet page, oh no, my thing got cut off. It looks like it changed. 11. The Unified Arts budget is actually, this budget is an increase in that area from the draft in December.
Correct.
We have a 0.4 FTE reduction. Is that, did the budget in December have a 0.8 FTE?
Budget in December had the cuts of music and art 0.2 for each of them. Now there's no cuts there. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing any of it, Julie. I hope you don't need me.
Which one are you on?
I'm sorry.
1500.
It's line 153.
I'm sorry, is there a question, Randy? You guys just came back. And now you're gone again. Wow.
Asking about packet page 12, line 153 substitutes.
Yep. We had talked about this a few meetings ago. I think I had done an analysis of substitute costs at the school, given the fact that we were changing sort of the way we were using some of the teachers who didn't have full schedules, and they were actually taking some of the slots of substitutes. I think perhaps it was a meeting we had with Brooke where we were talking about sort of analyzing those costs a little bit better, which I did. And so I did drop those costs down, but given that we are moving that 0.4 librarian position in this presentation out of the budget, you see it go up a little bit in FY27. So we're going from the $18,000 budget, which you see we did not spend last year, dropping it down to what I anticipate this year based on history through November, $12,000, and then upping it to 14, given the fact that we won't have that teacher available to sub in.
When I did, I lost like a whole column, so I was confused and I thought I actually ran out. I did that now. I got it. So it actually went down. It was the anticipated it round, and I thought that was, as I was toggling electronic paper, I got that. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Just one comment, I guess, that's to be clear, the library is 0.4 going over to Concord. And then the other art and music will be at 12 each.
And I'm curious about how and why we did it.
Curious about what?
How and why we landed there. I think I have a guess, which is that at this point, it's probably hard to imagine replacing who we have with part-time people or asking someone to make less money. So I'm guessing that that's what it is, but I want to be clear that I don't think that this conversation should stop happening. I envision next year being exactly where we were last month and talking about these positions. Is that fair?
Yes, I mean, there's no reason to think that, there's no indications that there's going to be a big change to the student population. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we've had conversations about it. We came with being able to salvage the library position, keeping it at 0.6 here, cutting out at least somewhat of a reduction for your budget. The 1.4 cent difference. It's relatively small. I don't know. I mean, you don't need the staff that you've got to operate the school. I don't know how many, it is a hardship, it's a problem, and the district is in a super tough position. Yeah, you should expect that this will continue to be a topic brought to you, and if you're looking at your district tax rate next week, next year going up 12 cents before you even hit the CLA, I don't see a world in which your community can afford that. I I feel like I could keep saying the same thing over and over again. But at the end of the day, it's in your hands. You know the issues, you know what's at stake, you understand the complexity, you've heard the arguments. There is no good path forward right now, period.
I guess, yeah, I agree with all that. I think obviously the girl in the room is Act 73, and yes, if nothing changes, that's where we'll be next year. But there are changes that are coming, and maybe they won't come, but I think with all information that we have, there is something coming as far as mergers or whatever. We don't have control over still absorbing the letter on healthcare, and we don't have control of that. We don't have control over not being able to influence other districts, and we don't have control of that. So it comes back to our primary responsibility, I guess, in my opinion, which is education, and that's the thing that we have to put as top priority. So yeah, I think it's holding the line for this year is, it's not an easy choice, it's not ideal, but it's what we got.
So, this budget, and I guess more specifically our staffing levels. So, are we aligned with our end policy? In other words, like, does this budget provide adequate funding for meeting our ends, or does it provide more than?
I think that, it's interesting, Julia, bringing this up because the ends policies for sure is something that I would say to you as a board. Do they need to be updated? Does your budget reflect your priorities in the ends policies? And if you as a board hear from your community that they are prioritizing unified arts experiences for kids over academics, then that should be reflected in your ends policies. And we would have to look at what kind of state and federal regulations you may or may not be following by doing that. But the budget is built based on your priorities as a community to help you attain those. That's the guiding light for us in our office. And so when we build a budget to reflect that, but then you ask us to do something different, it can undermine all of our work. So if you as a board feel like, hey, we really do want to look at whether within the Paul River communities, they are willing to let go of academics at the elementary level to prioritize the arts or unified arts activities, then that should be reflected in your ends policies. That doesn't mean I would come back and say you're doing that and violating state regulations around that, but I just think that in order for us to write a budget that complies with policy governance, we need to have an ends policy that reflects what you want us to budget around. So that's probably a much bigger conversation down the line, but from my perspective, we do need to have that conversation.
So it's curious, I never really thought of it as unified arts taking away from academics.
Yeah. I think you have, what you just said, so if you want to retain unified art staffing as it is right now,
Right.
and to have them teaching the number of classes that staff would normally require, with the number of students we have, those students would move out of
They would
academic
be
classes.
losing academic instruction to take arts classes in order for everyone to have, well, even then, we'd probably reduce classroom positions Because, I mean, you just don't have enough kids for all the staff.
Right.
So, you're either
But they could still take academics and art.
correct, but if you're having full-time schedules for people, then something has to give. If you're going to be taking more music, more art classes, that comes away from academic skills. Typically at the elementary level, when you have full-time schedules for teachers and for unified arts, it's in
So the
balance.
answer is more kids.
Yes.
That's the answer.
That's unfortunately not a variable that we have
Exactly.
control over. Yeah, I mean, right now, right, kids are required to have 2 PE classes a week. That is a state requirement that we can't change. Kids K-8 are required to have 2 PE classes a week, so we make sure we budget for that. There's not a requirement for other UA classes, and typically, kids have, 1 music class a week, 1 art class a week. They go to the library once a week. Those are pretty standard, typical schedules.
I hear what you're saying.
So-
I think the problem that I always run into is if you keep going down that road, which everybody keeps saying we're going to because of the demographics and the number of kids, is that you end up in a situation where you're like, all the extras are going to be cut. You're going to be in combined grades, which you see a lot of schools end up there when they get so few kids. They're trying to equalize the time of teachers. And that is just clearly not good for education, which is, in my opinion, the whole point, right? You're like we're going back in time.
This is exactly the reason we're doing reforming the entire system in the state, is because of exactly that. That's why Taconic Green just closed 2 schools, so that we could make sure that we were in that position. You don't have any other schools to combine with. You don't have a large enough district, so you are in a terrible position.
Right.
But I think it's important to reflect on the idea, right, of combining classes. Are we really gonna sit here next year with a combined grade or more and not make adjustments to unified arts staff levels? Because that doesn't feel like we're prioritizing,
I think we stop.
I'm still speaking. That doesn't feel like we're prioritizing, like, regular meat and potatoes education. And I have been reflecting on this a lot lately, and I have been looking through our community engagement things that we've done. Our very first one we did was a survey that went in our annual report. And I recall all of us being very surprised at how many people said that their priorities and values were reading, writing, and math. Like the basics, the basic building blocks of regular ed was what our community prioritized. I can't imagine going to them and saying, we hear you. We have a couple of classes with really small numbers. We're shoving kids together in multi-age classrooms, and we're not doing a darn thing to adjust schedules for unified arts that are wide open, because there are not enough classes to fill their schedule. Right? So we're gonna tell people, we want you to pay for wide open schedules, and we're ditching 1, 2, or 3 classroom teachers. I can't imagine saying that to my constituents and keeping a straight face. I just can't. I think, I think next year, I thought last year was hard. I think next year is gonna be a rough one. Scott, you have something you want to say?
Yeah,
No, I don't totally disagree. Obviously, if the numbers keep going the way they are, at some point, there comes a breaking point. But I think like Rico said, there are a lot of balls in the air right now. And there's some schools, other schools in our region that are in a lot worse shape than we are. They have smaller populations. So, I think that there are better solutions rather than diminishing the quality of education at Mettawee School. Hopefully, and putting a Band-Aid on it's temporarily, maybe help a little bit while it's, diminishing the quality of what we have going here. The real solution is more students, and I think that solution is not unattainable. I mean, at some point, other schools in the area are going to have to face the music too. So, none of us can predict the future, but I think that that's certainly a very possible scenario. In the meantime, you bring up the ends policy. I believe another part of that is social and emotional well-being. And I think that that's something that needs to be considered. I think that the arts are very significant for that. So, I think at this point we've talked about this, and we made that decision for now. What next year looks like, it could look very different. I think for all of us, there could come a breaking point, but maybe some other paths will open up that are much better paths, and then we can't undo what we've done. So, I think I think Rico's point about the number of students and other possibilities, they're on the table too.
John? Yeah, I think, I just disagree with the statement that we're not hoping with the educational priorities for the students or giving that same experience, because in none of the scenarios is it decreasing any class for a student. And I have struggled with this, I've lost sleep over this, it's been something I've thought a lot about since the last meeting, so I kind of dug through the last annual reports. And then, so we know in the past 10 years, enrollment has declined from 172 to 103. And I think projected for FY 27 is 97 students. And over budget years FY 21, 22, 23, 25, K through 6 classroom teacher positions decreased from 12 to 7 through attrition. No changes related to land staff. So we have, because of the budget we passed last year, the highest tuition rate for an elementary school in the state of Vermont. And I struggle with, someone has to be highest, why is that a bad thing, right? But are we really comfortable having that title when we know we have, I hate to use the word overstaffed, but we have positions that we have not enough lists for. So how comfortable are we as a board voting for a budget, knowing we're right at the top, when we know we have this wrong? It doesn't seem responsible. I've struggled with thinking that we're going to lose 2 teachers potentially lose 2 teachers who've shown their commitment and their dedication to Mettawee, but we need to vote on what we know right now, not on what might happen this year with immersion or Act 73. I just think it's irresponsible to continue as we are, just thinking someone else is going to make a change that says their students are right. I don't think that's what we were voted into this position to make decisions.
I will say we have the highest tuition. Again, it's just a function of the number of students. Mm-hmm. That's a simple division. But for long-term weighted, what is the average daily membership, we're average. We're in the middle for the whole state. Right. Right. So we're not irresponsible spending.
Well, are you thinking that the UA teacher staff decisions are full? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that once you get down to a certain amount of students, you can only cut so much. And I think, like the governor just said again in his speech, the state of speech, the only choice that took a line, like holding all these small schools open is wildly irresponsible. And if we're putting this on the board just to cut and cut and cut, in other words, we have no other choice. You know, like last year I brought up a foreign language student, a teacher. You know, if we're talking about education, why don't we have that? Why don't we have a more robust STEM program? Like, yeah, it don't cost more money, but as far as the educational mindset, that's what we should be talking about. Instead, like, we're literally talking about going the opposite way. And that's the problem. Yeah, I guess it's not, we're a board of education. We're not a board of taxes. We're not, we're certainly not on any state level. We only
We have
control
two
2 towns.
specific requirements,
I understand that.
and one of them is about money.
Yeah, we're not being irresponsible by providing these things. I guess that's the problem I always have with that argument.
Okay, I think, so here's my take. I keep hearing about us diminishing the quality of education. But Jenna hit the nail on the head. We're not talking about directional services. We're
I
not.
disagree with that, but go ahead.
We're not. We're not talking about minutes of classroom.
Oh, yeah, we've gone over this so many times, but go ahead.
But it's.
Well, thank you, I think I will finish again. We are not discussing taking any break and asking them to spend less time in the art room or the music room. That is not what any of this has been about. It wasn't about it last year, and it isn't about it now. And next year, it's also not going to be about it. So what we're talking about is asking people that are in our community to pay for wide open schedules or to fill those schedules and get kids out of regular ed classrooms, which was the point that Randy was making, right? So either we're saying to our staff, classroom teachers, we expect this from you, and here's what you have for contracted prep time and free time. UA teachers, have as much as you want. Don't care. Right? Like, that's what we're truly talking about. We don't seem willing to say that heart out loud, and I get it. I don't
Do
feel
you
good
think
right now.
Mettawee would be?
I don't feel good right now, having said that.
Do you think
Heart out
Mettawee?
loud. But that's the nitty gritty of what we're talking about. And that's the nitty gritty of what all the other small schools that Scott referenced are talking about. We're all in the same boat. I get that the answer is more students. It's the only answer we can't bring to the freaking table. It's the only thing we can't do anything about.
But the state can.
But that's one of our.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, they passed it. It's a law.
But our charge is not that.
Yeah.
So all that what you just described, so all that,
Molecular and make them do it.
all that what you just described, do you think that makes Mettawee a stronger community school?
I don't think it makes a difference. I think it just is money spent.
Right, well, I think it makes it a weaker school. I think it puts us in a weaker position. And that's the problem I've had from day one, is just, we're going back, we're literally going back in time. The process ends in one room schoolhouse. Right, we just cut and cut and cut, and you get nothing, like, you get down to 5 kids, which some schools in the state have before they close, right? And there's no plan. Like, what's the vision? Do you want a foreign language teacher? Do you want, like, a better program? Do you want all that stuff, or is that not?
Are you saying that in that schoolhouse with 5 kids, you want an art teacher, music teacher, gym teacher, librarian? Is that what you were saying?
I guess
That's what
it shouldn't have gotten to that point in
But
the
that's
first
not,
place.
we didn't do that.
I know, but we just going down that road, I don't know, I feel like we're sort of ignoring the big picture, we're ignoring what's going on. Even when we had this discussion last year, we didn't even hear the governor's speech yet. And I think a lot of us expected that he was going to come out and just say, cut, 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 everybody's got to tighten their belt. But instead he was like, no, this is crazy, right? And that's what started the whole Act 73 debate, which eventually led to the law, which eventually led to all that, and that to make these decisions while ignoring that, I feel like that's a bit irresponsible.
But if you're making decisions based on a scenario, you're like arguing with a future thing that hasn't happened yet. How do you know when the school's gonna work with us?
Right.
You don't
We have,
I don't say,
That's a great point, hold on, yeah.
okay, I will say, I am definitely not ignoring Act 73. I've put hours of my life into Act 73. I'm not ignoring it. I think we'll probably pass this budget tonight, and I think that you all need to understand that next year, when we don't have more students, and we don't have a concrete plan, if that is where we are, and it probably will be next year, I think we're gonna look incredibly foolish to just keep on pushing.
So if we don't find a merger partner and the state doesn't step in, okay, I think then, yeah, like, I don't think it's responsible, to answer your question, to have all these teachers for 5 kids. Then the conversation is to close the school.
Right.
That's the responsible
I
thing
think
to
people
do.
need to understand that.
Which is excellent.
It is possible that where we land is not having that in the open.
Yeah, that's right. That's the consequence of not having enough kids and that, like, and then and then we're really going to save money. I mean, easily it would be millions of dollars if we were just paying tuition. Right?
Considering that we have the.
And so there you go. You want money savings, like, I mean, if we just went to K-12 choice, I mean, we're talking at least $2 million for this budget. But at the same time, don't keep the schools open for 5 kids.
It's not guaranteed that we would be K-12 choice either.
Obviously, we have no idea. It's a complete hypothetical. But again, don't keep the school open for 5 kids. Right? Don't do that. But like, yeah, let's have frank conversations about this, and just putting Mettawee in a weak position, I think, is not smart. So
I think last year when we talked about this, the idea of the foreign language came up, and if we made the cut, that would be a foreign language teacher. I mean, right, so we are preventing ourselves from having.
well, I never heard that proposal. You're saying we cut the arts and hire a foreign language teacher?
Well, if we made this, huh? No, we're not, but we made this position.
Well, you just wanted to cut it, you would never propose cutting a teacher.
I'm saying when we talk about it, we talk about world languages, that the possibility is there, right?
Sure.
So.
It's still there anyway, I
No,
guess that's the other
I'm just
point.
saying, change to the budget, I mean, if that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying.
That was never brought up, I
Right,
guess.
I did make that point. We just,
No, last year, I remember, yeah, right, that's all that too.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you're talking about offering foreign language, world languages, that is within our ability.
I'm just saying, like, the way to run the school, again, in my opinion, responsibly, is to fund it and to have the proper teachers. If that can't happen because of the number of students or their money or whatever, then the next conversation should be to close it. I think the worst case scenario is to keep these schools open well past their expiration date.
Well, we're talking about high school right here.
Yeah, and so we're at that time, right? That's what we keep debating about, right? We're up against the number of students, the money, teachers, all of it. We're at that, right? That's where all the friction is coming from.
I have a question about combining the grades. Is that just done without any, like, does that just happen without our input, or is that, you know, the proposal for combining grades, does that go, is that different than this?
It would have to be approved by the board.
The reduction of a teaching position would be approved by the board, but we would be building classes based on class size minimums that
Is
we
that,
have in
is that
policy.
it's regulated, right, though, so that it should, the
It's,
amount of.
it's regulated by your policy,
Okay,
so you've got minimum class sizes for different grade levels, and that's what we build class size budgets for.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, in Act 73, and it's the only part that would take effect even if maps and all that stuff,
Yeah, it's already in effect.
it's already in there, right? So we already have to do those new thresholds.
right, that's what I was asking about, so does that go, automatically, or is that, okay?
It is in effect, but you are still voting on your budget.
Okay.
So if I present you a budget next year that aligns with Act 73 and includes a teaching position reduction, you cannot vote to approve that recommendation, right? You ultimately vote on your budget. I would explain to you what that all means, but the ultimate decision about whether you vote to approve budget or not is in your hands.
And we are currently out of our own policy and Act 73 guidelines.
You are the one class, well, probably a few classes, actually, I have to go look, but yeah.
I think when I brought it up last month, there was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think it is too, I just haven't looked at enrollment recently.
We're under the threshold number of students.
Yeah,
Right.
What is the number?
I'm looking.
Grades 2 to 5 is 12.
I think it's 3 to 2 is, and then 3 to 6 are the breakdown.
Yeah, you're out of compliance in grades 5, 6, and 2 right now.
With how many students?
What do you mean?
How many do we have? What's the threshold?
I have 8 in second grade, and it's 12. It's 15 in 5 and 6, and you're 12.
Do they take all the classes and then average it? Do they do it that way?
No, it's by grade level.
And obviously, we're not the only ones in that book, so.
You will
In the VRC, yeah.
So
You will be, you're not now in the RC, but you will be next year.
what is the per pupil spending, I guess, of them?
Sue probably has that number right off the top of my head.
I did not go through the motions of doing that same calculation that we did last year, but last year, Julie, we were looking at 35 when we were just talking about, all costs for a student. If you, the announced tuition, which is just the education of the elementary students, excluding special education, transportation, and food service, that's the 26.9. I'm sorry, you guys cut out and I can't hear you anymore. It's on packet page 23, the announced tuition when we get there. Doesn't do it either. Oh, we're back.
Can you hear us now?
I can now.
I was asking about per pupil spending for us compared to other schools or districts. And I was specifically, I guess, mentioning T&G, but.
Right. So if you think about announced tuition, that sort of education number for your elementary kids, T&G is 21,000 this year, and you're just under 27. So that's the difference.
Any other questions, comments? So, looking for a motion on approving the fiscal year 27 budget. As presented. We go with Scott. Any discussion on that? All in favor of approving the fiscal year 27 budget as presented tonight? Which was, what, 935,806
Right.
So there's no more discussion about proposing a different budget, it's this budget we're voting on.
Would you like to discuss, or we could discuss it in a discussion,
Or we can discuss.
right?
So we can discuss amending. Can we discuss amending? Want to make a motion to discuss amending?
I think that would just be a
We're
part of
discussing.
discussing the budget, and then you would vote, and then depending on how the vote goes, you propose and amend it.
Okay.
You know?
I'm struggling with the right thing to do. But really, like this, and so this budget, so this is the budget you're proposing. I'm not gonna put this.
Yeah, it is.
This is the budget you're proposing.
It's the budget we're proposing.
It's the budget. Okay.
Right. I'm also struggling, and I feel like, part of our job as a board is we take all these things into consideration, but then we're also looking to guide from superintendent. And so, I guess, yes, you did ask, how did we get to this budget, or why did this get presented? Did you have, thoughts on why this is the,
Yeah.
for our community?
There is, every single decision you make, every single proposal I make has a cost. And every argument that's being made is valid. You do not need 0.8 FTEs for unified arts in order to provide the music and art classes that your kids currently have. And when you look at the impact on the budget, and when you look at the tax rate, it's not huge. So ultimately, we said, hey, I'm trying to listen to you. I'm trying to hear the concerns that you're wrestling with. Trying to figure out the path forward that's the best path we can come up with at the moment. And so when we were able to look at reducing the library and maintaining a full-time position, I'm saying to you, please understand that. We gave you the same lifeline last year and you didn't take it, which puts us in this position this year. So I'm asking you to please, hear that. But I don't think we need it, but it's still in the recommendation.
Okay.
And just to be clear, you said like the savings isn't a whole lot. What did it finally land on?
That's right.
It was
It's on
one
like
Page five.
20, or
It's $51,000. It's a 1.3 cents, and 1.38 cents to the homestead tax rates. And, you know, for some people that might be a lot.
but and there's other, for those that are in need of assistance,
Right, there's,
other tax.
so,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
there's income sensitivity.
Income tax.
I think that, you know, the arguments that are being made, everyone has a perspective on this. But I think as you look ahead, it's only gonna get worse from here.
Right.
I don't see that when you're building next year's budget, if the foundation formula goes into effect on July 1st to 28th, and you're looking at the changes. I mean, I don't know.
We talked about it last time, yeah, we'll close the school.
You won't, yeah, I mean, you won't be able to do that for the following year, but you're in a tough spot.
Right.
And you may decide as a board that you do want to take some control of your destiny, and you want to look at taking action to merge where you can. And with people who may be more interested and more aligned with who you are and what you do. You can't go non-operating, right? Act 73 prevents that.
Does it?
Yeah. But,
That was in an early version.
you cannot close, you cannot move from operating to non-operating.
Isn't that what Danville just voted on though? They were going to go non-operating 9/12?
No. I can't remember the details.
They were going to go non-operating 9/12. It was in an early version of the bill, but it didn't.
Yeah, I think there's more to that. I'm not gonna speak to it, but I think that there's something about that.
That's what that vote was about.
I don't see a world in which you could go non-operating.
I don't either. I don't see a world in which this community would support being a full choice community. I don't. I think I see a world in which this community would tell us to.
The volatility.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, operate, but it would still be cheaper than operating a school like you said.
Talk to
before.
Winhall, yeah, talk to Winhall.
It might be 1 year, and then next year it'll be wild. It would be, this community would not, I don't see this community going for that. I don't.
There is that option as well, like south in the sense of joining Conic Green and maybe absorbing some students from some of those
Right.
schools.
Exactly.
If, you know, we're not going to wait around for other schools in the area, to have that option, maybe, and that is something that's more under control. So,
Right.
you know, that might be where we go, rather than, you know, working with declining students, if that's the way to have more students, where we don't have to, you know, keep making these tough cuts, maybe that's the way to go. And I think that makes, like we were saying, that makes more sense, rather than cut. Let's figure out a way to get more students, be a robust school.
I hear you, I don't disagree. I also think that it's a little bit flippant to just say we'll absorb students from them and not acknowledge the real possibility that what will happen is that we'll shut our school and we'll go there. That is a strong possibility for us. I think people need to understand. I need my community to hear and understand that on the table is the possibility that Mettawee Community School ceases to exist. I need people to hear that and understand that. This is going to be a really hard next year. There, I'm off my soapbox for now. Any other comments, questions before we vote on the motion that is on the floor, which is to approve the budget as presented. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, next up, we have to approve the warning. Did everyone get a chance to look at the language on the warning? Because this is what will be printed on the ballot, so we should take a moment just to make sure that that all looks good.
Please note the time of the informational session. Yes.
Yes, so it's Sunday this year, and it's 4:30.
At the school.
I remember that. And I did submit my petition.
Thanks, Jim.
I've entertained a motion on approving the warning.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jenna.
Sorry.
Thank you, Corey. Any other discussion on this motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Passes for you to sign.
Motion carries. Next up, we have approving the tuition rate.
We're going to be passing the signature sheet of the warning. I need everyone's electronic.
Yep.
And then just send it back.
Can you send it digitally to Anthony, or is it?
Okay.
Okay, so it's the board, a bunch of boards have signed it.
And it needs to be majority of your.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, approving the tuition rate. Can I get a motion on that?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jenna. Second. Thank you, Corey. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question about, I understand how we got to that number, but does it have to be that number? Can we change it?
You're voting to set it. So this, we follow what's in statute for how to calculate it. I'm sorry, I can't hear anybody anymore.
I don't see. Sue, can they charge less?
You can. I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would give somebody who you're tuitioning into your school the benefit of paying less money than you're charging your taxpayers. It would seem an odd thing to do. But yes, that's why this is coming to you for your approval. You set the tuition rate.
Nobody, everyone's all set? Ready to talk? Okay. Next up, we have a, action item to approve the cell phone policy.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Corey.
Also,
Thank you, Jenna. Is there any discussion on this policy?
I'll just say that it's a required policy, right? It's very aligned with our current practices. For you at Mettawee, no law of elementary levels, definitely easier to enforce than a school level. But we have procedures in place and responses, when it comes to bring justice. Oh, long time.
Oh, it's
Since
Jackie.
Jackie.
Was this specifically managed procedures as well? Yeah. That was always something.
No, well, we didn't enforce it, but yeah, this one.
So this, was that new? That was
Yes.
new? Okay.
Well, yeah.
I wish it could be on the buses.
I know.
Is there a new state law about the cell phone thing? Right, so now it's statute, before it was just a policy of the district, and now it's an actual state requirement.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like that.
So that's what she's saying, this is a mandatory.
Right.
Hand up, and I will take public comment during the public comment period. All right. Any other questions on the cell phone policy? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, so that's approving it, and then you'll have an adoption at the next meeting.
Right. So next up is the work plan. I did want to, in light of what we were talking about, and also the fact that we've sort of been kicking this down the road, we had been talking about doing, ends policy revision. This was the year to do that. We've been doing community engagement every year, and then this was the year, to revise those policies. And then but we do have this thing about a community survey, so I'm trying to figure out how we got to that. I'm just drawing a blank right now, I know we discussed it. But I'm thinking, if we're really going to be looking at our ends, in light of the discussion point that you brought up, Randy, about how we prioritize staffing, should we, I'm trying to think about what makes sense. So I'm kind of asking for some input from you guys, but like, do you think it makes sense to have our own discussion about how we might look at changing our earnings policies based on what we've already gathered so far? And then putting together some sort of survey to our community about that discussion and gathering feedback on potential changes before we make them?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to start that discussion in February or in March? I guess was my thought. Just doesn't give us a ton of turnaround time to put all of the data together if we did it in February.
Okay.
So move that to March. And so then what we're really talking about is changing this survey thing to a ends revision discussion, putting that in March. And then following that discussion, maybe then in April, we would start working on what that survey, April, May, we would work on what that survey would look like, or what that community engagement, it doesn't have to be a survey either, but that next component, right? Is everyone comfortable with that? Does anyone have anything else that they want to, add on to that, or anything else on the work?
More community engagement, the better.
Yep, okay. Okay. So, if everyone's comfortable, then we will move on to item 7, which is the legislative and VSBA update. We did amend our agenda tonight to include a letter on healthcare. This letter was penned by Jim Salzgiver, the chair of the BRSU. It's an op-ed piece that will be published. Do we know where it's going to be published, or just local?
Send it to the local papers and whoever publishes it.
Yeah, okay. The gist of this is that the public feels, and I don't think fairly, that the elephant in the room of rising healthcare costs has not been sufficiently addressed at the state level. I think Jim did a really good job. He did, everyone had the other chairs of the BRC boards had an opportunity to look at it and weigh in. Honestly, by the time I had the time to really look at what he had written, it was fantastic, and I didn't, I'm taking no ownership of this, because it was all done by others before I had a moment to digest. But I stand behind it. I think it's a great letter, and we're just being asked to approve this board being a co-signer of this letter.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thanks, Jenna.
I know. I really appreciate the work that has gone into it. I mean, I just, I don't know, yeah, it's great. Thankful to be a part of a board that is advocating for the right things.
Yeah, and my apologies, my intention was for this to make it into the packet, and I did look at the packet ahead of time, but I didn't even, it just didn't even come into my head. That's, it hadn't made it, so sorry for it being so late in here.
I think there's a lot of things that everybody agrees on. I guess the question is the legislature going to do anything, like, are they making any healthcare related proposals? I guess that's going to come in the legislative update, but, I mean, yeah, it's good for a letter to the editor, but, right, we need this to, we need to folks in Montpelier. Yeah, they need to pick this out, right?
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this letter? So there's a motion on the floor to approve us signing on to this letter. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, excellent, thank you. Other than that, we have a lot to talk about. So it will not be the case in February. That we won't have anything to talk about on this. I'm sure there's gonna be some stuff to do.
There's a lot of testimony happening this week. I anticipate a lot of testimony next week. I don't think at this point there's really a clear direction. It's unclear about where people are, how people are gonna kind of hit the ground as it relates to advancing on 73. I think just stay on top of it. We will keep staying on top of it. It's definitely, I don't think anybody knows where it's gonna go. Great.
Yeah, especially going into the session, it seemed like the legislature didn't have any appetite for drawing maps, and then the governor threw down gauntlet, so I'm gonna veto everything until I see maps. And so that's where we're at. Right, I mean, is there been any movement since then?
No.
Right.
No, nobody's drafting maps. I mean, there's lots of conversations, I think, testimony about, look, like, it isn't all about maps, right? The maps are not gonna solve the issues. And I think as we talked about tonight, if you take the big picture of the discussion tonight, is really, we have too many small schools in the state. And think about if every board that is small and really probably could and should be making some staffing reductions are having the same challenging conversations that we are in trying to grapple with educational quality and opportunities for kids and rising tax rates. And if everybody keeps landing in the same side of the discussion as we do, we will never, ever get to a place where we have a stable educational system. And that is going to require schools to close, right? It's going to require big changes. And I think, I had a colleague who's going to be testifying, and this person was saying that they have to make a point of really commenting that they're speaking for BSA, not speaking on behalf of their board. Because when you think about state level reform and doing what is right for the kids in the state of Vermont, it's almost always at odds with what any one community wants. They don't, and that is, and so does anybody have the courage as school board members, as superintendents, as legislators, to be able to look at the big picture and make moves that are going to improve educational quality, opportunities, outcomes for kids, and maybe something that many people in the community disagree with. Coming off just closing 2 schools, there's nobody more acutely aware of how emotional and how difficult and how painful that process is. So, I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that we all need legislative action to mandate our work if anything's gonna actually change.
I agree about the maps, but I guess I still haven't, like, what's wrong with just 3 proposals that the task force was supposed to do? You can reject all of them, right? But just having those 3, I guess, conversation starters. And I feel like it's almost like they're using it as a tactic to solve the process. Like,
I think that the challenge was that they couldn't put forward a map that fundamentally did not think was ultimately going to be in the best interest of educating kids. And the idea of a map, the challenge is that within every region of the state, the reasons that taxes are high is variable. There is not one reason that people are spending too much money. In some places it's because the schools are overstaffed and under-enrolled. Other places, it relates to choice. Other places, it relates to salaries and very affluent communities spending a lot of money, right? Like, some things are different, some of the challenges are transportation costs based on distance traveled. If you saw some of our transportation costs, you'd be like, oh my, like, it is wild. Right? But so trying to solve the issue by finding maps is not a solution, and I think that some people were really struck by that. they weren't willing to compromise and produce a map that they knew was gonna be harmful at the end of the day, or not accomplish what it was intended to accomplish.
But it is going to be that. We have that now, it might be the same, might be different, right? So it's, I guess you know, I guess I don't see it that way at all. Just, you know, there's 3 proposals, you don't have to, we're not saying it's the end map. There were supposed to be 3 proposals. And they're sort of using it as a political tactic just to follow the process down in hopes that it'll all eventually fall apart. That's what I think happened with the task force. But it's not political analysis.
I don't see it the same way, but probably every Vermonter has their own ideas of what motivates the task force or visual numbers.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any sense for us to assign motivation to anybody in Montpelier for why we are where we are, but we can acknowledge that we are where we are. Okay. Future agenda items? I don't know if this is a future agenda item or something for us to think about, but, I know we've lost some students to homeschool decisions, and I'm just wondering if we have a program or policy around homeschool family outreach, and if there's work that we can do to try to bring these families back into our schools. I don't know if any other boards have tackled anything like that, or if that's something that we would like to continue discussing.
I think, yeah, that could.
It would be nice in some capacity to hear why they chose to do that, like if we ever were able to.
Yeah, that's exactly
Why not do that, or something, and see if they'd be willing to come, sit down with us, they'd be here to be back.
And some people I know in the past have come for 8 hours only, so there's interesting ideas about how to, combine things. And that's a good idea.
Do you have an idea of where you would like that on our work plan? No. Doesn't the actual
What is kind of discussion?
No.
It's kind of a can of worms, it's a thing.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe after March. Does that make sense to you? Because we have all this other stuff that we've been adding, like maybe over the, spring.
Yeah, and I think that I have no thoughts on this right now. When we present the work plan in March, we can add it at that point.
Okay.
It'll be part of the.
Okay. Yep.
I'm not in this weird and
Neither am I.
thought you were talking about a way I'm off in the future. It's sort of like, okay, right.
Okay. Anyone else have future agenda items? Does anyone have anything? Okay. Are you ready?
I am. Self-evaluation. What is the level of engagement of all board members? I think we are always super high. I appreciate that. The agenda was followed perfectly with a nice addition. Link to the board's work plan, yes. Sufficient time spent on community engagement, its discussion, and executive limitations, all yeses.
Yeah.
Set the agenda used appropriately, yes again. And did we adhere to the operating norms, which, I guess not having them might have been something that we missed, but I think we're pretty good about that. What went well for you? What was that? Or input?
Lively discussion.
Yeah, I think as a board, we are able to talk about, things that are not comfortable, and I think that's really good. and have fairly respectful conversations. Okay, does anybody have concerns at the meeting? No? No? Another? And how could this be approved? I guess I will say that the sound is a little bit of an issue with the hair.
Yeah, she wasn't sure if it's, Sue was asking, is it the owl, is it internet up here, but I don't seem to be having any issues being at that.
I don't either,
It's on her end or whatever,
yeah, and you're on,
Really fine downstairs when we use it downstairs for the slip board. The owl is, you know.
no, I think she's getting some age on.
Oh, okay. Maybe she needs a little upgrade.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, I mean, we can check in with like Bob and Amy and Brooke and Ross also. It sounds like, at least one other person joining remotely also was having it cut out.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just not sure.
So, I mean, I guess a possible solution to that, if we want to continue to meet here, is to not use the hour. Because I do think she's just.
We
I
have
don't
another,
know.
we can try ours next time. I can bring whenever that meeting is that we're here.
Okay, or just having one, computer with the audio. I mean, those are options that we can try, I guess.
Okay. Any other improvements? Suggestions? No? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comment. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. It's a blessing of my board, having worked all the way through the agenda, and I would, without exception, adjourn at 8:05. Thank you, everyone.